Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Raw Daddy Hour, hosted by yours truly, Raw Daddy himself in the flesh. Grandma loves the podcast. Why don't you? Today, I am being joined once again by Miss Allie Marie and Mr. Travis Viverette, the Black Sav, the people's champ, the one everybody wanted to see. Allie, let's introduce yourself one more time for the people just in case they didn't see your last episode.
Hey y'all, my name is Allie. I am from Heidelberg, Germany, personal trainer and nurse, here to go ahead and share my outlook on parenting.
Black Sav, let's tell the people a little bit about you.
The way you introduced me, bro. My name is Travis. I'm a photographer, videographer, graphic artist, and slowly working my way up on cinematography.
Cool. So today we're going to get into the subject of parenting and just how much parenting matters. Now, I know you don't have children.
No.
None of us have children currently, so we can't speak from personal experiences on being parents, but we can speak to what it was like being parented and kind of how that shaped our lives and how we are today. So, Allie, I'll start with you. Let's talk a little bit about your childhood, where you were born, how you were raised, what was life like?
So I was born in Heidelberg, Germany, and my parents were together for over 20 years, but then they got a divorce. We weren't religious or anything, but through that divorce, it was like parents fell off, having to take care of siblings and stuff like that at an age of, 16. And so learning how to become an adult at such a young age, that's a hard time. So, but it shaped me to be who I am, so helped me be real strong. Confident, independent, so yeah.
Trav, what was life like for you?
So my parents are married technically. But legally they're married. But I grew up in a single parent household. So me and my 5 other siblings, or 5 including myself. I'm sorry. Basically, my mom moved away from Florida. My father was abusive. And from there, when my little brother was born in 91, it was just her by herself doing everything. So in a sense, we had to learn quick. So we had to, become very hard, very fast. We grew up in, a lot of projects, hoods, whatever you want to call it, the ghetto, all that. So, me being the oldest, I had to do a lot of fighting because my little brother would love to run his mouth off at dudes. So that was always me, taking beatings, and through the time, you get tougher and tougher as you go along. But, all in all, I learned a lot about what I don't want to become and what mistakes I don't want to make when I do become a parent.
As for me, I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, for the first 17 years of my life. My parents were together the first 10 or 11 years that I was alive, and then they got a divorce. My parents divorced. I say this all the time. I think they got the best divorce ever because the parenting still stayed tight. They did a great job of co-parenting. They're still friends. We still take vacations all as a family. And do all of that stuff. So I had both parents readily available. We started in lower middle class and then ended up just kind of bare in the middle class. So technically through my older years, I was technically in a single parent household. From there, kind of moved to do my own thing. I'm the oldest of 4, so I always wanted to kind of be on my own and everything. But growing up in Detroit I was very conflicted, because I'm not a hard individual. That's just not how I am. I'm a very loving, friendly person. And growing up in an environment where you almost have to fake it to not get messed with, you know what I mean? And that kind of conflicted me. So I made decisions that were kind of off at times and were out of character, just based on the environment that I was in. But it was the best environment that my parents could put me in. Even living in Detroit, they put us in a lot of scenarios to succeed. Right? They did the best that they could within that environment. So I want to kick it to, actually, I'm going to go to you, Trav, and I want to talk about those experiences when you were younger, right? So at what age do you first start to remember the impact that parenting had on you?
I'm probably gonna say 10, about 10 or 11. That's when like everything started to come to light. At that age, I don't think any child should know those things about it. But I mean, like for me, it was like, okay, I'm picking up on the game early. So both of my parents were drug addicts. So my mom was still, on drugs as well. And so there were times where we would like, walk in the house and we're coming from school and like she's like smoking it right in there. And, I'm just like, what is that? And she was just like, the one thing, that I do appreciate, one of the many things that I do appreciate about my mom, she was just straight up. She didn't bullshit us. It was just, it's crack. And this is what it is. And I do it because it is an X, Y, and Z. And it was like everything else we ever needed. Like it was just everything that was hardcore about life is what she just told us about. Early on, like 10, 11, 12 years old, she's like, if you ever go to a party and you put your cup down, don't pick it back up. You take your eyes off the cup, don't pick it back. I don't care where you are. It could be a birthday party, whatever. Don't pick it back up. Don't talk to strangers, X, Y, and Z, all that stuff. But and particularly that's like reasons like people always ask me why I always look angry. And that is my face, like that I always had to walk around with in the neighborhoods. Cause, if you're quiet, nobody knows if you're crazy or not. So I'm giving you, a heads up. Like don't, don't come messing with me. Like for real, like don't come messing with me. When we were in San Francisco, and it was a neighborhood we lived in called Potrero Hill. And like the worst part of the neighborhood, you would think it would be like a group of dudes, but it was actually a group of girls, and they were called the Potrero Hill Girls. Like this was like they were on the news. They beat up some lady on the bus while she was holding her baby. So I'm like, every morning we had to go to like school. We weren't worried about the dudes. We were worried about the girls because they had like knives, bats, and all this stuff, like everything. And I'm like, this is every day. So I didn't look at nobody. If I heard noise, it wasn't none of my business. If people were screaming out, I'm just telling my brother, you keep your head forward. Don't say nothing. And we ain't got to fight. But, what I mean? At times it was inevitable. So, that's just how life was. And, we were in San Francisco. My mom moved us to Nevada, and we moved to Reno. We was in the hood in Reno, and then that was worse because we were only black kids there. So we're fighting, white kids, Hispanic kids, the whole nine. And we went to Sacramento. It goes on and on. So, all I knew is that every time I went through a situation, I'm just like, I swear to God, like I will never be in this situation again. You'll never find me in the hood. Once I get old enough to take care, like to control my own destiny, you'll never see me in this bitch again. So whatever. The next time anybody sees me, it's going to be on the internet. Whatever you hear good things about me in the news or whatever the case may be. But it's just being exposed to everything like that. Those traumas is just what led me to be like, I'm not going to do these, I'm not going to repeat their mistakes. And that's also why I'm so hardcore on like not doing drugs. Yeah.
I feel you on that. So Ali, you talked about having to grow up at 16. Talk about that experience a little bit.
That was hard, honestly. My mom kind of had like what you call a midlife crisis, kind of, just because Dad was in the Army, so he was always gone. Once they got a divorce, he left, didn't say goodbye or anything, and just kind of stepped out. We all came home and we were like, where's Dad? Never said anything, he just left. And so then it was just my mom. And I think it was like she'd been with him for so long, always just taking care of his kids while he's gone, that she was just like, I'm gonna do me. And so whenever that happened, she just kind of disappeared. And so it was just like me and my little sister. And so that was a hard time. Things got abusive for a little bit, and then I honestly had to take things into my own hands. And I actually decided to leave my junior year of high school, and I went and stayed with a friend because I was just like, if I keep this path of what I'm going right now, I was like, I'm angry, I'm mad, like I'm sad and stuff like that. I was like, I would have gone down a really bad hill of just doing drugs and stuff like that. And so instead I went and stayed at a friend's house, and then her family helped me just kind of like stay level-headed and everything. But I mean, it was hard. It was really hard. I mean, having to go and take care of my little sister, and she's like, she has disabilities and stuff too, so she's not the easiest to, work with. So she has like bipolar, ADHD, ADD, and like slight MR, and so working with her while she's like dealing with everything for my parents too, and then like with the abuse, like nobody knew what was going on. So it was like if I told anybody, they would kind of like, my brother would downplay what was going on. So it was like I had to be real hard, like real strong, and just like keep it all in. Like I was the person in high school that made everybody laugh. I think that was like my escape of trying to get through it all, Yeah, so I think that's like, I can be real goofy, but it was just like, that was how I got through like all the hard times and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm blessed by it now. It's made me like really strong. I've forgiven like my parents for everything, and I've been able to go and give them grace and stuff like that. We all mess up. I don't agree with anything, but like kind of like you said, it's made me realize like, what kind of parent do I want to be? And I love that like your parents are able to work together and stuff like that. I mean, that's amazing. That makes me so happy. Like I love that. So that's gold right there.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely gold. So, so Trav, I want to hit on a little bit. Let's talk about what steps you took to prevent being the type of person that you saw on a day-to-day growing up.
To be blunt, to stop giving a fuck about what anybody else thought. Like the way my family is like, they'll be like, that's your dad, or that's your mom, and just go along with it, all this and that. I was fed up, and I'll let I mean, I don't mind saying it, but I was an emotional kid. So growing up in a single parent household with your mother, all is your mother's actions of how to deal with things. And I was just like, no, like I got tired of smelling cigarette smoke. I got tired of smelling, the smell of the glass, all that stuff. And even when I tried to make amends, it was like they were not listening to me. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, I have to, take matters into my own hands, because I never had a positive role model. So I didn't have, these football coaches or anybody was like, I see potential in you, son, all this and that. And I didn't have that. I had to literally, in a sense, create my own like imagination of myself as an adult, as who I wanted to be, and then follow that line. So, I picked up pieces from like certain people that I read about, like, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Huey P. Newton, Martin Luther King even. And I'm just like, okay, I like this, I like that. These are the qualities. And then, I'm going to follow principles, because I didn't see the principles being followed by my parents. I see them following their own selfish goals, and not to speak illy of them, but like a drug addiction is like, it's a really powerful thing. It can cause you to do whatever, if you're hurting bad enough for it. So understanding that and knowing that, that's why I stuck so, I was so stubborn about things. Like, I'm not going to smoke cigarettes. I'm not going to become an alcoholic. If I do drink, I drink like only when I'm out with my homies. And now it's only 2 times out of the year. So like, it was just being around all that negativity. And I'm just like, this can't be life. This is not, for me. Not to mention that I also had a godmother who gave us books all the time. She's from Detroit, Kaylin. So every time, and at first we resented her for it, but like she was like, oh, it's your birthday, here's a book. It's Christmas, here's a book. Like whatever the case would be, New Year's, here's a book. And I'm just like, geez, like what is it with the books? So I had a terrible reading level. So they were like, Kaylin would do this thing where she'll be like, well, because I love drawing and I wanted how to draw books. So then she's like, if you want this book, you got to read the first couple pages out of it. And I'm like, I was about to give up on it. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, fuck it, I don't want the book. So, but they literally, I wanted the book so bad. So I would literally sit there and read it all out. So I would sound out the letters, everything, and my mom, like, only thing my mom would tell me is like, your dad's got a 3rd grade reading level, and I was like, well, that's not very motivational. Like, I need a tutor or something. And then even still, when I did get a tutor, I didn't stick around. Like, I also had, some behavioral issues because I didn't like the way they were teaching. Just tell me the answer. You know what I mean? And
What kind of tutor is that?
that's how I was, though. You know what I mean? I just wanted them to tell me the answer. But, when I started reading those books, actually, that Kaylin got me, then, like, I started seeing where my bloodline comes from. Like, what greatness comes from, my people and people who came before me. And I'm just like, okay, so if I understand this was their downfall, this is not going to be my downfall. So I just kept on progressing more and more. And, of course, they kept giving us more exercises. If you want a PlayStation, you got to read the storyline in the game and stuff like that. So it just kept on going on from there and there. And then I always knew that nobody was always going to be there to hold my hand for it. So, eventually you got to get out there, and it's going to be scary sometimes, but you got to get out there and do it. And I'd be like, hell, I don't know if I'm going to succeed, but I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm giving it my all. So, you can talk about failure, success, whatever, but as long as I give it my all, whatever the outcome is, I'm satisfied with it.
I want to touch on something you said about having the godmother who was able to kind of step in, give you the books. I know, even though you didn't want to read them, and I didn't like reading as a kid either, but you were given the books. And I think one of the biggest things that parents can do to help create a conducive environment for their children to be successful is build that village, right? I think that's one of the biggest things that my parents did. There were a lot of things that they weren't good at. You know what I mean? There were things that they didn't know, or things that they couldn't do, or things I just wouldn't listen to because they're my parents. And I just didn't want to listen to them about certain things. So they built these villages. So you talk about the coaches. Like, I had the coaches, right? The people who they could lay into me a lot harder than my parents could, and I would actually hear it, right? People that I'm still friends with to this day as I got older. And I relate to being the oldest in the family, and like you said, peeping game early and starting to pick up on things, right? Because I'm very intuitive and observant, so I was picking up on everything. Like, I kind of knew they were getting divorced before they got divorced, and that's why I was able to handle it well, because I'm just like, well, I mean, if it's gonna happen, like, am I gonna be able to see my dad? Like, am I, like, is this, with TV shows? And it was a case where we could see him whenever we wanted to, right? It wasn't like they didn't have like scheduled visits and stuff like that. It was, we're playing baseball, my dad's gonna be there. We're at a swim meet, my dad's gonna be there. So I do believe firmly in building that village to cultivate that environment where that child can be successful. Case in point, myself, someone who was able to be successful coming from a place like Detroit, where a majority of people never see another city. They never get to leave those city limits. They only know their block for the most part. They live there their whole life. Then they pass that house down to the next generation, and boom, 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 it just goes from there. So that village piece that you kind of touched on with the godmother is very important, because it could have been, that was kind of one of your saving graces. That was that little thread that you could tug on to give you that little bit of hope to see, like, okay, this is who I don't want to be. And this is an example of someone that maybe I do want to be, or they have qualities that I want to take. And so I think that that's extremely important. Ali, you touched on something I found interesting, the forgiveness piece. How was that journey to forgiving your parents for everything? Because that's not easy. And I know a lot of people, like you said, put up with family because they are family, right? But I personally believe that family, that word, that title, that moniker is earned. I don't care what I came from. I don't care whose blood I have in me. You're not my family if you didn't earn that right to be my family. So how were you able to muster up that emotion to forgive your parents?
Whew, that's a deep one, man. I'm 25 right now, and about to be 26, but literally 25. And I'm just now, the beginning of the year, I think maybe a little bit towards the end of 24, I've actually been able to fully surrender and let go and heal from everything that's happened, and been able to forgive them and actually have a relationship with them. It's taken me that long. That's a long, that's what, 8 years? That's 8 years. And just now actually realizing the effect that it had on me. And I am religious, so, I went to God when everything got real bad for us. And so through that relationship, learning how to love myself and everything, I was able to, love them too. That people are people, even family, even blood, they're going to mess up. They're going to, F you over sometimes. And so just being able, I made healthy boundaries with that though. I know how far I need to go ahead and keep them. And so, but yeah, this year I definitely forgave my dad for sure and my mom. But it's taken a lot of journaling, a lot of self-healing and everything, to be able to separate their actions from who they are, who they truly are. I know they didn't, that's not, their goal was not to hurt us. You know what I mean? Just like, so, but yeah.
Damn, that's pretty deep right there. And one of the things that you hit on that, Trav, I'm gonna kick it to you, was how long, like how much that set you back, like how long it took for you to get to this point of, I mean, would you almost say that you're able to relax a little bit more in like you were saying, the what it did to you, the effect that it had on you, and now 8 years later, 25, you're just now being able to rid yourself of that. So Trav, what I wanted to kick over to you was, how long did it take, or what steps did you take to kind of overcome the seemingly large burden that was living in that environment? Because you did have to come out of it at some point. And like you said, you wanted to get out of it when you were able to live on your own means, but that was how many years in the game? You know what I mean? You only know what you know, right? So what steps were you able to take once you were able to remove yourself from that situation to then start to shift your thinking to be the person that we see now, the Black Sav, the people's champ?
It was in 2009 actually, when I got my ex. I became a member of the Nation of Islam, and I got my ex, and it was just like, then I had a good camp around me. So I had a lot of men who were like, okay, well, the way that you're thinking is only because of X, Y, Z. They were able to actually help me go back and then be like, okay, well, this is why I'm emotional. This is why I'm handling situations this way. And this is how I should handle it. It's still been a process for me. It's never going to be anything, because I thought maybe it was going to happen like over, like, just give yourself like 2-3 years, Trav. You'll be fine. You'll be an outstanding gentleman. Which, I mean, I am. I mean, but this face, but there, I'm not gonna, not to toot my own horn, but I've made a lot of progress from how I was, in my early 20s, mid 20s, and late 20s, and now, I'm 31. But I'm still like, can I say, like, I don't want to say vindictive, but I'm still rageful. There's a lot of anger in me. And I acknowledge it. I just know how to be chill now. You know what I mean? And I talked to y'all about it earlier. I think it was like a couple weeks ago. And I told you when I reached out to my dad and basically asked, because I realized that I had abandonment issues from him not being around. And I started to recognize my love style. So when I asked, just, because we never talked about it, the guy, didn't call me, never really spoke to me or anything like that until my 30th birthday. Calls me. Then that whole year, you call me once on my birthday, then you call me around Thanksgiving, and then you call me, New Year's. And I'm like, all right, at first I'm like, this is weird. But then it started to resurface a lot of things for me, and I started to become very upset. So, and it all started to make sense to me, especially with like relationships, why I was always trying to hold on to them, and I didn't want them to leave, things like that, because I was always afraid of being alone, just didn't recognize that I was afraid of being alone. So, reaching out to him and asking him, well, why didn't we have a relationship, or anything like that. The first thing he did was just tell me, it was on your mom. And I'm like, I don't like that. You can't tell me it was her fault, because even though, she did what she did. And I can't say my mom had the best, she did the greatest job in the world, but she did the best she could, under the circumstances that, she had going on. I knew that she cared. I knew that she loved us. I knew that she wanted us to be better. She just didn't really know. She didn't know how to raise, two boys into being two men. And there was a lot of conflict, you know what I mean? So I can understand she went through a lot, and I understand there was a tremendous amount of stress on her. But when he said it, it upset me because I'm just like, where was your sense of urgency? Where was this whole thing where you were just like, let me call my son, let me see if he's okay. Wasn't around for like my first football game, first basketball game. We're not there when I went through my first heartbreak. You were not there. When I went through the emotions that I went through, and it was always my mom, like being there for me. So I didn't cry much. I didn't show a lot of emotion. So from that phone call, I talked to my mom about it, and it just, I was just like, was letting loose. That whole week I was just an emotional wreck. And, and she, Allie's talking about forgiveness, and he's forgiven. It's just that, in order for me, I feel for me to move forward in life, like you need to just give me just be straight up with me. Just say you weren't ready to be a dad. Say you weren't ready to take on that responsibility and you just wanted to, do whatever now. Because now I feel like you're only reaching out to me because I don't want anything. I'm older now. I don't, it's not going to be a phone call where I'm like, I need money for football pads or, for helmet or school, like books for school or anything like that. Now you're trying to make an appearance. And now that it still upsets me, and I'm trying to do my best to identify with it. Because I don't have a counselor, but I have like, a circle of good people that I trust, and I talk to them about it. And, there's only one more time I'm going to talk to him, and then that's just all I can do from there, because I can't change someone who's not willing to change. And just like you said, whether it be blood or anything like that, yes, you are my father. I am here because of you, but you haven't been around. Your entire absence, from my perspective, shows me that you haven't given a damn about, the seed that you planted. So, that all those things, and having these men that I grew up around, like when I got my ex, and them teaching me actually how to be a man, like late in my 20s, these are things that I was supposed to be given, growing up, but through and throughout, I've learned so much. And now in my, I'm 31, and I feel like, like everything's so clear now. I'm able to take it a lot easier, and when it comes to like friendships, relationships, and things like that, now I take more time to get to know people, because that used to be another issue. I was just always like, okay, well, we're cool, we're gonna be it, this is it, and then this person shows their true colors, and then I'm just like, yeah, nah. So I hope I didn't go off onto a tangent.
Nah, you good. Look, hey, you was being yourself, man. You was letting it out. Raw daddy out. You was being raw. I mess with that. But Allie, I want to ask, what's one thing, one piece of advice that you could give to someone who is maybe currently in the situation that you were in, right? Maybe they're 14, 15-year-old girl or 14, 15-year-old boy who's going through the same things that you were going through. What's a piece of advice that you could give them to kind of, keep them on track, keep their head up, and all those types of things?
I would say to seek out a good community or a good little circle or something. Like find somebody that you trust, that you those people that you meet and you immediately just get the vibe of like you trust them. Like there's somebody that you could trust for sure. I'd say find somebody like that you feel safe and that you feel protected, where you're not alone. Because going at it alone, that is a very hard thing to do. So just make sure you got your little niche. You know what I mean? That you can go to, run to, that people know about too. Like they know what's going on or something like that if you're going through things or whatever. So if you need somebody, like you have someone to reach out to, a safe place for you to go or something.
And my last piece of advice is just going to be for parents in general. Don't underestimate how much of you are leaving in your children. And understand that the role of parenting that you accept when you bring these children into this world is a lifelong one. And that they are literally relying on you to give them the tools possible to navigate this world in a way that they can be successful, that can, help your family be successful, and that they can be happy and live a long, frivolous, fruitful life. I'm very passionate about good parenting, having had good parents myself, and then having had a lot of friends and seeing a lot of people go through not having adequate parenting. I understand that people are people; they make mistakes and they have their hardships or whatever. But being a parent is literally the highest form of a job, of a role that you can have on this planet. And if you decide to take that on, just understand what you're getting into. Just like how they have the kids read books, I think prospective parents should have to read about what children go through between the ages of 0 and 5, right? What cognitive abilities they start to have when they turn 8 years old. Coming from coaching, I've seen just how smart kids are, just how much stuff they pick up, the things that you don't think that they're noticing. 6 years old, 7, 8, and they still got another 10 years to live with you. So my advice to parents, coming from someone who's not a parent, whatever, is understand what you are doing to these little human beings, right? Because once they become adults and they're not your problem anymore, they're still not good, right? Just because they turn 18, they're not good. So my biggest thing that I want for parents to take away from this, from my perspective, from parents to take away from this, is just understand the role that you're getting yourself into. Understand what your children are going through, get to know them, love them, learn how to love them if you don't know how to love currently. And we go from there. We create great people, society becomes great, and we all love each other. That's going to do it for this episode of the Raw Daddy Hour. I want to thank my guests, Allie and Trav, for coming on and being raw today. That's all we got for y'all. Catch you in the next one.